Hey babes, welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you are new. My name is Brandy. I am the host of the Be Real Babe show, and today, you guys, we are keeping up with Canada, and I have three different topics for you today in Canadian news. One is an article coming out about Dollarama and how most Canadians are going from buying things at Walmart and Sobeys and Safeway to going to Dollarama because of the price of everything these days and how everyone is struggling. We're also going to be talking about a couple that was assaulted through a marketplace sell situation. So, something I actually, you kind of think about it, but I've never actually heard of something very terrible happening through a marketplace sale. So, an article about that. And the last story, we're going to talk about Bailey McCourt's family talking about how the story is becoming politicized and that some people may be using it for their political gain, and just how devastating this whole situation has been for the family. And we'll also catch up with the case that's ongoing cases that's going here against James Plover, the individual who took Bailey's life. So if you're interested in listening to those stories, stick around and we'll jump right in. Okay, babe. So I hope everyone is getting ready for the holiday season, or getting ready for the end of the year, or ignoring time altogether, whatever you choose to do. I remember growing up, all I knew was Christmas, and it's so crazy as you grow up, you realize that not everyone spends this time of year doing the same thing. Some people don't even believe in time. So if you are enjoying the holiday season, I hope you're getting into it. I have run out of different hats now, but I still have tons of shirts, so I'll have more to keep going in the coming weeks. As this post, we only have one more Monday, one more Keeping Up with Canada before Christmas, and then one more before the end of the year. So crazy. I can't believe 2025 is almost ending. But as I mentioned, guys, it is three different topics for you today. One topic that made me feel very sad, just kind of showing, where unfortunately Canada is in the world right now. And I know at Christmas time it feels like the hardest. And I'm not going to lie, when it is dark at 5 p.m., everything seems way worse. I'm not going to lie. So when you are having those moments of despair, when it's dark and raining and cold and snowing outside, and minus 30 for some of my Alberta friends, I understand, even makes it worse. But then you read articles like this and you think, oh, okay, well, maybe it's not just me. Seems like a lot of people are having a hard time. And then as the winter is here, it also, in Christmas, it does seem to highlight that. So let's go over this CTV news article that was published on December 13th. I can spend it on other groceries. Canadians turn to Dollarama amid rising costs. On a blustery, freezing Saturday afternoon, the parking lot at a Dollarama store in the east end of Scarborough, Toronto was nearly full, bustling with people coming and going from the Canadian budget retailer. The value, it's all about the value, said shopper Lena Ricci, who says she has started buying goods more frequently at Dollarama over the past year. I think I save about $15, and that does go a long way. I can spend it on other groceries like my meats, which is so expensive. And now, in one of the grocery stores, it says part fresh, part frozen on the hamburger. I'm sure that's me just tripping. What the fuck does that mean? Dollarama released its earnings for the third quarter of the fiscal year this week, reporting a profit of $321.7 million, a 16.6% increase from the $278.8 million in the same quarter last year. This is insane to me. And again, like, obviously a lot of people rely on Dollarama, and I'm not shading them, but it just blows your mind when you hear that that's their profit is through 321.7 million. And for how cheap they sell some things, you really like, that's kind of crazy, right? That's why I stopped. It's like, that's so great. It's like, it's not that there's money missing in the world. There's definitely, I'm not saying they should make this money. I'm not saying anything. It blows my mind that there's people more frequently going to Dollarama that can't afford groceries, and their profit was 321.7 million, and just keeps getting bigger as people are making less money. The budget retail giant also saw sales increase 22% from 1.56 billion in the third quarter last year to forecast 1.9 billion this year. It shows that consumers are suffering. It shows that consumers with modest incomes are hurting, said Ian Lee, an associate professor at Carleton University Sprout School of Business. They're looking for ways to economize, and so people are shifting away from, say, Walmart or Costco and Loblaws and Sobeys to the dollar stores because prices are lower for consumables. When one sector or one component of retail jumps like that, it's because some other sectors are losing sales, Lee added. So people are switching from, let's say, Loblaws or Metro or Sobeys to the dollar stores. Or they're downshifting from the Walmart and Costco to the dollar stores, and they're doing it to achieve lower prices. Economists said a combination of factors over the past 5 years has pushed consumers toward more budget-friendly stores. Inflation, interest rates surged after the pandemic, while rapidly rising housing costs, prices, and rents have outpaced income growth. Some foods have seen a decrease in production due to factors like climate change and supply chain issues, making their prices climb at grocery stores, while stagnant wages haven't kept up to the inflation for basic necessities. Word. I'm sure for the most part, I think most Canadians feel this way. It just feels like even if your wages do try to keep up with inflation, it just doesn't feel that way. Like it used to feel that way when you got, raises, those regular ones, depending on what province you are. It's mandatory in certain places. Um, it doesn't even feel like it touches it. You're like, oh, cool, now it's caught up to gasoline inflation. Great. You know what I'm saying? The US-Canada trade war, which both saw both countries impose tariffs on goods, added to the economic strain. People were not sure where the economy was going in the third quarter, said Colin Mang, an economist at McMaster University, in an interview with CTV News. We actually did see household spending drop by 0.1%. That's the first time since that's the first time household spending overall has fallen since 2021. Dollarama said a part of its profit surge is due to sales from 401 stores in Australia, as well as the growth in the total number of Canadian stores over the past month. So they went from 1601 in October 2024 to 1684 November 2nd, 2025. But economists say it also has to do with the cheap manufacturing of goods imported from overseas. See, this is the interesting part, right? We're saying shop local, and some people are like, I can't shop local because I can't afford it, right? And that's just kind of insane to me. Much of the store, much of stuff imported comes from East Asia, where manufacturing costs are much lower than here in North America. That leads to some very, very low prices. It's very competitive retail space, and we've actually seen over the past couple years, up until just the past couple months, is that prices for these kind of household goods have actually been decelerating. We've seen prices fall in 2023 and 2024 for a lot of these household goods, partly because supply has increased. That means that the Buy Canadian movement, which gained momentum after the United States imposed tariff on Canadian exports, appears to be less of a priority for families struggling to make ends meet. And like, do you blame them? Right? It's all well and good if you want to say shop local, but sometimes, unfortunately, that costs so much that you can get 2 to 3 times more if you don't. I'm not saying like fruits and vegetables as much. I'm talking like, some like Windex. Like today, I went and bought because of Christmas baking. And one thing I notice every year, especially right around Christmas, is everything runs out. So all those type, specialty type chocolate chips like butterscotch and mint and all that. So while I was out today, I thought I better grab these while I'm out. And Independent Grocer had them for $6.99, and Walmart had it for, I think it was on sale for $4.98 or $5.98. So still saving a couple dollars. Like that does add up over time, right? So it's like you do try to shop local, but sometimes those couple dollars make a huge difference, especially when things like chocolate chips used to cost maybe $3 for those bags. Now it's $7. Like, oh my gosh. I think it's putting people in a very difficult position because they do want to buy Canadian, first of all, but it's difficult in many different products to find something that's made in Canada. And secondly, if you do, it's going to be more expensive, said former TD Bank chief economist Don Drummond in an interview with CTV News on Saturday. So you want to do that, but you have a difficulty finding it, and then you only got so much money at the end of the day. Exactly. And that makes it so hard for all families, right? Again, it's like you want to shop local, you want to support Canadian, but sometimes it blows your mind how Canadian is 10 times more. So it's like, okay. And then other parts of you are like, well, it's not that there's not Canadian drivers delivering these things. It's not like Canadians aren't working at Walmarts or, other stores like that, other options, Dollaramas and stuff like that. And I've noticed a lot of people, and for myself personally, if I see it at the dollar store and I'm there, I'm always going to pick it up if it's the same thing at Walmart or at Safeway. Like it's the same branding. Sometimes I don't think it matters. Look at the expiry date. I don't see a difference there personally. Um, but obviously, too, you got to take into factor that, it's not always the best foods that are being bought there. It's just crazy how much it is just to have fruits and vegetables, and how sometimes it's cheaper for people just to go get shit at the dollar store. What the fuck is happening to this country? Okay, so next story, I was actually shocked because, like, you hear of these things, but I've never heard it to happen, to be honest. So it's like you think these things could happen. It makes sense that these things would happen because people are fucking crazy. But then you hear a story that's somewhat close to home and you're like, oh shit, this actually happened. So a couple assaulted, bear sprayed in their home in attempt to Facebook Marketplace robbery. Inspector Jason Walker of the Calgary Police said investigators are still in the process of confirming the men are repeat offenders. So this was published December 9th. A Calgary couple was attacked in their home on Saturday afternoon when a Facebook Marketplace transaction turned into attempted robbery. Jason Nguyen had arranged for two men to come to his home to look at a laptop that he had posted for sale online. Having sold items on Marketplace before, he said it's perfectly normal for a buyer who would want to test a device before buying it. He had the device set up so the buyers could test it, but instead they looked it over and asked a few questions, then asked Nguyen to box it up for them. At that point, I did feel a little bit uneasy because it doesn't make any sense, Nguyen said. A lot of my buyers, if I were to sell something that is expensive, they want to test it. In video footage from the camera in Nguyen's living room, both men are seen on their phones. Nguyen said he believes that they were coordinating their next move, while Nguyen sent them his e-transfer information. As he turned to put the laptop in the box, one of the men bear sprayed him and chaos ensued. The men dragged Nguyen outside, losing hold of the laptop in the process, and his wife, Nun O, so sorry if I fucked up your name, hearing the commotion, came running. Blinded from the pepper spray, Nguyen hung on to one of the men until Oi's yelling for help confirmed she was safely behind him. I didn't know if she was behind him or in front of me, or if they grabbed onto her or anything like that, he said. I realized that she was behind me, and that's when I decided to let go, and we thought that was it. But rather than running away, one of the men re entered the home to retrieve his phone, which he had dropped during the attack. Using a shovel that his wife had brought him from outside, the couple were able to force the man back out. I wouldn't say I was scared. I was afraid for my wife. That's it. I was thinking just reactively at that point, he said, whereas my wife, she was really scared for our lives. Nguyen had said that he felt fortunate the men weren't carrying any weapons other than the bear spray. It took more than 24 hours for the burning sensation for the bear spray to wear off, he said, but other than some scratches and bruisings, both he and his wife were uninjured. My wife is a little bit shaken up, he said. She still has trouble sleeping at night. She's always double checking outside and stuff like that. I would freak the fuck out. And like, again, not victim shaming at all. These situations are just good to know so that you maybe don't do something like this just because you never know anymore. You know, I wish it was a place like it was when we grew up where it was safe to have people come to your house and it was just innocent. Even like 5, maybe 10 years ago when Marketplace and like online and when Marketplace first like came out to be, it was a lot more innocent, and now it's just more criminals and more crime and more scam artists, and things are getting harder for people. So there's innately more criminals and they're not getting in trouble, so they're not stopping. Similar incidents tend to increase around holiday season, said police inspector. Though they had a camera outside as well, the men had parked away from the house, so no footage of the vehicle was captured. However, since Nguyen shared videos of the incident online, others have reached out with similar experiences. A lot of people have come forward with the photo and video evidence of the exact same two individuals that were involved in our incident, he said. Knowing the two men had unmasked themselves when they entered his house so that was confident he could recognize their faces. Inspector Jason Walker of the Calgary Police said investigators are still in the process of confirming the men are repeat offenders. These types of incidents are common, he said, and tend to increase in frequency around the holiday season, when more people are buying and selling online. We've had 5 similar reports in just this last week, he said. Part of the investigation will be examining the profile of men used, which Walker said is most likely a fake account. It's a very sobering reminder for all of us, he said, adding that he's grateful that both of them are okay. I appreciate that Jason himself has been very proactive in trying to message out safety and preventative measures to other Calgarians, Walker said. Safety advice for online transactions such as bringing a friend, verifying identities when possible, or avoiding cash transactions can all be found online, but Walker said best precaution is to avoid meeting strangers at your home. Do it in a safe public place, and we encourage people to come down and use the parking lot at our police station, he said. Reputable people will have no problem doing that. For any information, they're asked to call 403-266-1234 or submit an anonymous tip to Crime Stoppers. And again, it seems such a pain in the ass that you would have to go out. Like, we should be able just to sell stuff between each other and not have to worry about psychopaths coming in and bear spraying us. Like, they shouldn't have to worry about this. We shouldn't have to worry about this. But as they said, over the holidays as crime increases, be careful. And I guess I understand not no cash transactions at the same time. Sometimes people are scammers, so it's hard to want to send them money and give them a deposit at the same time when some people are just scammers that way. So it is getting increasingly hard, and I wonder what the future looks like for these kind of things. I don't know if it's just going to kind of be if it's just going to stop because there's just so many scammers, or are they going to find other ways around this? I don't know, but just be wary, take the tips as they said, don't sell anything from home if you can't, if you're not trusted, or make sure you're not alone, I guess, or that you don't let them in your house, I guess. But I know you do have to worry because you are having strangers come to your house that you don't know, right? And so you just never know if you're being clocked or not. And I don't want to be a person that lives in a world where you're so scared of everything at the same time. I don't think it's unfair to take these precautions, right? So, anyways, keep your mind on that and understand again at this time of year, it's a little bit difficult. So, like they said, you can meet, at least somewhere near the cop station. It doesn't have to be right in there if you don't want to do that, but I'm sure near it. And I know during the daylight, maybe taking those precautions, having someone else with you, meeting somewhere, I think is a great advice. But I know that's not always easy, and you don't want to think, oh, I shouldn't have to do that for everything. But if those things are worry you, those are cautions that you can take. Okay, final story. So in the last episode, we talked about Bailey's Law and how it had unanimously a standing ovation in the House of Commons for the second reading, I believe, if I remember correctly. And so I wanted to catch up on the cases that were happening here in Kelowna that sparked that law. And then I also found another article. So we're going to read both just to keep up on the cases as well. But this is also something that I always worry about too when it comes to politics. I know it's important to look at policies and talk about how some policies are contributing to situations, but then there's a fine line when people are using stories to publicize themselves or use it politically, versus actually getting to the problem of what's happening. And we see this all the time in politics. And so this kind of article kind of pulled my heartstrings a little bit because, again, I do believe there's a fine line, right, where you want to help, but you also want to understand that there's individuals grieving currently as they're going through this too. So family members of a Kelowna woman whose killing has become a rallying cry for change say they are troubled by how new federal legislation is being rolled out. We're obviously not opposed to measures that are going on to help protect Canadians, help protect women, and help protect children, said aunt of Debbie Henderson, aunt of Bailey McCourt, a Kelowna woman killed last summer. Their concern is that the Protecting Victims Act, introduced Tuesday by the Liberal government, could undercut Kamloops Thompson Nicola Conservative MP Frank Caputo's private member Bill C-225, dubbed Bailey's Law, and their grief is being used for political advantage. We were pushing for Bill C-225, which was already on the table, and Frank Caputo agreed to honor Bailey's name and call it Bailey's Law. To support the bill, Henderson said the government's request changes that would classify murders driven by coercive control as first-degree murder. They were already moving ahead with making intimate partner killings first-degree murder. Henderson said the amendment was accepted, which is why Bailey's Law received unanimous support in the House last week. It was an act that was widely lauded and offered some measure of comfort to the family that has been thrust into an advocacy role since the brutal killing. But with that language now lifted into government's legislation, C-16, Henderson believes the move redirects attention and sets the stage for Bailey's Law to be pushed aside at the committee stage. It kind of feels like a backhanded way of saying, hey, we're not going to let the conservative bill go through because it's a conservative bill, she said. That looks like a lot of politicking to us, which actually is pretty despicable if that's what's going on, considering what our family has already been through. Agreed. Bailey's killing was exceptionally brutal. She was attacked with a hammer in broad daylight, and the man accused of the violent act was her estranged husband, someone she was supposed to be able to trust. Henderson said this is why the family has taken center stage in a call for change. I understand politics will include politicking, but how dare you do this with a family, grieving family, she said. I hope I'm saying that word right. I don't know why that one's struggling with my language skills. If that's what's going on, it's absolutely despicable and very discouraging. Henderson said she's hopeful that's not the case, but the family is wary of the way things are being presented. The Protecting Victims Act would treat murderers driven by control, hate, sexual violence, and exploitation as first degree. It would define these murders as femicide when the victim is a woman. The bill would require courts to consider remedies and other other than a stay of proceedings to reduce the number of cases being tossed out due to delays. It would also outlaw engaging in a pattern of coercive and controlling conduct against an intimate partner. There's currently no specific criminal code offense prohibiting such contact, which is crazy. I understand, like, back in the day, women were a lot more bound, but it kind of blows my mind that there's no protection of this um, set type of crimes. The bill would also expand the criminal code section prohibiting the non-consensual distribution of intimate images and apply to non-consensual deepfakes, which again, all these things are great. So I understand, but I understand where we're coming from, right? Like, this is so great. These are things that are encapsulating obviously a little bit more, but it's like, can we just not have the bill that's already gone through, that's already been worked so hard on? Let's push that through and then look at this bigger picture here. But again, I don't know how government works and all of that. So I'm speaking completely out of ignorance. But again, most common day people have that and could be, why a lot of people are upset about this. I'm not saying, obviously, not at all speaking on behalf of the family. I don't know what happens. I'm just saying for myself, that's where I would be upset. But perhaps there's things that I don't, obviously, there's plenty I don't know about, but maybe there's more going on than what I understand. But if it kind of like, it does get pushed aside to this bigger bill, I can understand that seems frustrating. It's like, to me, it just makes sense to push through the smaller bill and then go to the bigger one. The legislation also proposes a new offense that prohibits threatening and distribute child sexual abuse and exploitation material, and it would ensure the child luring offense mentions extortion so that it applies to sextortion cases. Again, all these things are absolutely amazing. Like, yes, please, let's do all of this because kids are very much getting abused and extorted online. I think a lot of these things are obviously all going in the right direction. So I understand the people that are like really pushing for this bill as well and looking at the positives of moving forward in some of this stuff, but I can understand as well just the one to this one, it's intimate to you, right? The bill would restore all mandatory minimum penalties of imprisonment that are inoperative because they have been found unconstitutional by the courts. It would allow courts to order a prison sentence below a mandatory minimum penalty, but only where the minimum would result in grossly disproportionate punishment. Caputo said in an interview with Casson on Tuesday that he was just starting to read through the new liberal bill and he was happy to see movement but frustrated with the amount of time taken. My hope is that these measures do go as far as they need to go, he said. I will be speaking personally with the Minister of Justice hopefully in the coming days. So, again, all these things, I feel like a lot of the times when I'm reading online, one big struggle and something I also very much struggle with is understanding, which I feel like I'm getting better at, is that multiple truths can exist at the same time, right? So everyone's going to be coming at everything based off of their experience. So anybody that is close to Bailey and close to the case and close to that family, obviously, if it feels like it's being pushed aside for another bill, and it's not being pushed through because it is a conservative bill and it's more of a politics thing versus, the actual what it's doing, understandable frustration. That is absolutely ridiculous. It shouldn't matter. This should be a bipartisan issue. It shouldn't be that. At the same time, when I'm reading online, I'm hearing people saying that, there's a lot of people that are being affected, not just by Bailey's Law, but this big bill entirely, and how it's going to help a lot of people, which I agree. Again, both can be at the same time, right? There could be people within that realm that want to fight for this that are going to always, in the moment focus on just that because it deeply affects them and that's their advocacy and that's allowed. And then there's other people over here that are going to be advocating because they got affected in a slightly different way and in a different avenue with a different results. You know what I mean? And I think it's important we all come together. That's why I do think it's really great. Hopefully, like, fingers crossed, I'm always so hopeful sometimes when we have these big bills and then obviously some things happen and things get more fucked up, but I'm always gonna hope for better laws and improvements on things that need to be done, like intimate partner violence and violence against women. Absolutely. But at the same time, if you feel like your advocacy that you've been working so hard, that had so much light, is now being dimmed, especially due to politics, absolutely frustrating, right? But both can exist at the same time. Maybe that's not happening. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Let's hope, let's pray that it is, but absolutely right to be questioning it because sometimes not a lot of times the government does suck, unfortunately. And sometimes they do stuff good, and sometimes you really just don't know where that's going to fall, right? So let's keep an eye on this, like keep our prayers up that they keep going, and let's hope that these actions are done in memory of to ensure that others don't have to go through this again versus just political talking points. Okay. So, but also before that, there was a little update as well for James Plover that I want to talk about that I haven't updated recently on here. So, the Kelowna man accused of killing his estranged wife this past summer was sentenced Thursday for a prior domestic assault. Following a sentencing hearing earlier this month, Justice David Roos sentenced 33-year-old James Plover to a 12-month in jail for assault by choking and threats he made back in 2024. The offenses occurred in the context of intimate partner violence, but the identities of the victims involved are protected by a publication ban. With enhanced credit for time served, Plover is left with 147 days to serve on the sentence, facing first-degree murder charges and facing first-degree murder charge. This sentence has a little impact on Plover at this point as he remains incarcerated for a murder charge from this past July, which was recently upgraded to first-degree murder, which we've talked about a few times here. Plover was convicted in 2024 the 2024 assault and threat charges in Kelowna court on the morning of July 4th, 2025. Just a few hours later, he's accused of hunting down his estranged wife, Bailey McCourt, and killing her with a hammer in a public parking lot near Spall Road in Enterprise Way, injuring another woman who was with McCourt. Plover was tracked down by police and a short time later and was arrested outside a home on Glenmore Road near Lake Country. He's scheduled to appear next in court on that file in January, but could be several years before that case comes to a conclusion. The June 16th, 2024 incident occurred in Kelowna's Rutland area when Plover lunged at a woman, strangled her, and later threatened to kill her and two others and himself. The attack left bruises on the woman's neck and profound psychological and emotional impacts. The woman was able to escape from Plover before he barricaded himself inside a home and obtained a propane tank in contemplation of suicide, Judge Roos said. Plover then pulled out a machete and destroyed a table and painting in what Crown Counsel Jessica Patterson said was an attempt to destroy the woman's most precious possessions. With the assistance of Plover's mother, police were eventually able to convince him to leave the home. The incident attracted large police response, and Plover was taken from the scene in handcuffs. Earlier this month, Crown Prosecutor Patterson said Plover never took responsibility for his offenses during his trial nor expressed remorse, and his trial essentially amounted to victim blaming. But during sentencing submissions, Plover said no sentence he receives would ever rival the torture he inflicts on himself daily. As has been the case with all of the Plover court dates since his arrest for murder, a number of McCourt's family and friends filled the courtroom Thursday morning. I mean, dude, I don't think you're going to get much sympathy from people about what you put yourself through when you've put a lot of people through stuff. And I guess this is where, and I guess I understand where this becomes political because people will always go to the government and the judges and the laws of repeat offenders just being in and out and in and out. And unfortunately, this is one of these cases. He shouldn't have been let out. He is a menace to society. He's an absolute demon, allegedly. Don't sue me. But if all these things are true, which I mean, there was witnesses to this, so I'm assuming it's going to be true, but I'm going to say allegedly. I don't need to get sued. This person should be in jail. This person should be in psychiatric evaluation. This person should be looked over several times over and not left any sight. Clearly, the amount of things and the amount of threats and why that stuff's not taken seriously. And I don't want us to have to be a state where we're policed so intensely. At the same time, the bad people have to go away, and we need to, yes, we can have compassion. Yes, they're human beings and they need to be taken care of, but they need to be taken care of somewhere where they can have rehab, where they cannot harm other people, themselves, anybody that they care about. Like, if we were really going the route that these are mentally ill people, which they are, but that they have some sort of sympathy or empathy for what they've done, then don't you think we need to give them a place to work together and heal from that away from society until they're safe? I think that's what jail really needs to be, is a place for rehabilitation, mental health support, drug rehab, not in and out. Not in and out so you can just go and offend again. And I don't know why this hasn't changed. I don't know what it's going to take for people to get mad about this. But anyways, you guys, thank you so much if you have stuck around to the end. I hope you enjoyed those news articles. We have one more week before Christmas, so one more episode. I'll be a little bit more decked out in my next episode. Thank you guys so much again for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, comment if you can. And then don't forget, on Wednesdays we have Internet Insanity, and then Friday is the Be Real Babe podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Rumble. So make sure to go listen over there. And if you want to go on social media and go to the Be Real Collective page on Instagram. We're currently doing a giveaway there where we're going to be pulling one lucky winner a girly self-care stocking and making someone's Christmas a little bit brighter this holiday season. Thanks again, you guys, for listening. Until the next episode. Bye. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Until next time, bye.